You were doing better, not perfect, but better. You were showing up again, you were making better choices. You were starting to feel like maybe this time was different. Then one bad day happened. You missed the thing. You fell back into the old habit. You wasted the day. And suddenly, it did not feel like one bad day anymore. It felt like evidence. Evidence that nothing really changed. Evidence that the better version of you was fake. Evidence that the old version of you was the real one the whole time. That is why one bad day feels so heavy. Not because it destroyed your progress, but because it made you question whether your progress was ever real. Imagine this. Someone is sitting alone at night. The room is quiet. The day is over. The phone is still glowing somewhere nearby. But even that is not enough to distract them anymore. And for once, they are not running from their own thoughts. They look at their life honestly. Not the version they show people, not the version they explain away, the real version. The patterns, the wasted time, the broken promises, the habits they keep defending, even though deep down they know those habits are slowly taking something from them. And in that quiet moment, something in them gets tired. Not sleepy tired, soul tired. Tired of repeating the same cycle. Tired of wanting better and still choosing the same thing. Tired of watching days disappear and calling it survival. So they think, I cannot keep living like this. Something has to change. Maybe it's their health. Maybe it is their work. Maybe it is their sleep. Maybe it is their discipline. Maybe it is the way every night turns into escape and every morning starts with regret. Whatever it is, they finally see it clearly and it hurts. But for once, the hurt becomes fuel. So they start, not dramatically, not perfectly, they just start. The next morning, they make one better choice, then another, and then another. They clean the room, they go for a walk, they open the laptop, they cook the meal, they sleep a little earlier, they stop avoiding the thing for one day. And then one day turns into two, two turns into three, and three turns into a week. And something begins to change. Not their whole life, not everything, but something. There is a quiet pride that comes from proving to yourself that you are not completely stuck. You begin to trust yourself again. You begin to believe, maybe I can actually change. Maybe I'm not the person I thought I was. Maybe the old version of me is not the final version. And when you have spent a long time disappointed in yourself, even a small amount of progress can feel like oxygen. You're not at the destination yet, but at least you're walking. And for a while, that is enough. Then the bad day comes. Not a disaster, not some dramatic collapse, just a bad day. You wake up tired, work drains you, something goes wrong, someone says the wrong thing, your body feels heavy, your mind feels foggy. The day starts slightly off, and every small thing after that feels harder than it should. And on that day, you miss. You do not do the thing. You skip the workout, you order food, you stay in the bed too long, you scroll for hours, you avoid the task, you go back to the old habit. At first, that is all it is, a miss. One missed day, one interruption, one moment where your energy was lower than your intention. But then your mind gets involved. Your mind does not treat it like one missed day. Your mind treats it like a confession. It starts building a case against you. See, this is who you really are. The disciplined version was fake. The consistent version was fake. The improved version was fake. You were just performing. You were just pretending to be better for a few days. But this is the real you. This is where you always come back. And suddenly, the problem is no longer the missed workout. It is no longer the wasted evening. It is no longer the bad meal, the late morning, the unfinished task, or the hours lost to the screen. The problem becomes you. You do not think I had a bad day. You think I am back to being the old me. And that is where the real collapse begins. Because if the old version is the real you, then recovery starts to feel pointless. Why try again if this is who you are? Why restart if you're just going to fall again? Why pretend to be disciplined when the truth keeps exposing itself? So instead of recovering, you linger. One missed day becomes two, two becomes a week becomes the old routine. And now the story feels even more believable. Not because the first bad day was powerful, but because you gave it authority. You let one bad day become the narrator of your entire life. This is why one bad day feels like a failure. A bad day is not dangerous because it interrupts your progress. It is dangerous because you turn it into evidence against yourself. You use it to argue that the better version of you was never real. But that argument is false. One fallback does not reveal the truth of who you are. It reveals the strength of an old pattern. And old patterns are strong because they are familiar. The old habit knows where to find you when you are tired. The old mindset knows what to whisper when you are discouraged. The old routine does not need effort because you have practiced it for years. So when you fall back into it, it feels convincing. It feels natural. It feels like home. But familiar is not the same as true. That sentence matters. Familiar is not the same as true. The old version of you may feel real because it has history. It has repetition. It has emotional weight. That is why Zuko from Avatar works so well here. His story is not about productivity. It is about identity. For so long, Zuko believes he has to be one version of himself. Angry, obsessed, desperate, chasing approval from people who keep defining his worth for him. That version of him is painful, but it is familiar. It gives him a mission. It gives him a role. It tells him who he is supposed to be. Then slowly he starts changing. He sees another way to live. He begins to question the story that he has been trapped inside. He starts to realize that the thing he is chasing may not heal him. The approval, the honor, the place beside his father, the old dream. For a while you see the possibility of a different Zuko. Still angry, still confused, still carrying the old pain, but different. Then he falls back. And when he falls back, it feels like the old version won. It looks like all that growth was fake. It looks like the angry, approval-hungry Zuko was the real Zuko after all. But then something important happens. He gets what he thought he wanted. He gets the approval, he gets the place, he gets the life he spent so long chasing. And somehow, standing inside this dream, he feels more lost than before. That is the point. The old life is still familiar, but it no longer fits. The old identity is still available, but it no longer feels true. That is what change can feel like. Not clean, not perfect, not a straight line. Sometimes change feels like returning to an old life and realizing you cannot fully believe in it anymore. You can return to an old habit and still not belong there. You can have a bad day and still be changing. You can fall into an old version of yourself and still know deep down this is not where I want to stay. That discomfort matters. Because when the old habit comes back, the question is not only did I sleep, but the better question is, does this still feel like me? Does it actually satisfies me? Does it feel peaceful? Or does it just feels familiar? Because sometimes the clearest sign of change is not that you never fall. It is when you do fall, the old story does not hold you the same way. You know too much. You have seen yourself do better, even if it was only for a few days, even if it was only 1 week, even if it was small. That evidence still counts. The bad day does not erase it. But this is the trap. When we do well for 7 days, we treat it like fragile evidence. When we fail for 1 day, we treat it like the final truth. 7 good days become maybe I was pretending. 1 bad day becomes this is who I really am. That is not honesty. That is a biased trial where the only evidence against you is allowed to speak. Your progress counts, your effort counts, your attempt counts. The version of you that tried was not fake. It may not be stable yet. It may not be fully built yet. It may still collapse under pressure, but unstable does not mean unreal. A house under construction is still a house. It just cannot survive every storm yet. And maybe you cannot fully decide which version of you is real. Maybe none of it is true. Maybe all of it is true. It does not really matter, because the question is not which version is the real one. The question is whether you recover. So when the bad day happens, the first job is not to fix your whole life. The first job is to name the day correctly. This was an interruption, not a collapse. This was a hard day, not proof that you are hopeless. This was a miss, not a verdict. Language matters because the name you give the moment decides the weight it carries. If you say, I failed again, your mind hears finality. If you say, I had a hard day and missed, your mind still has room to recover. Same event, different meaning. And the meaning decides what happens next. Then return smaller. Do not punish yourself with a giant restart. That is one of the easiest ways to stay stuck. You miss 1 day, feel guilty, and then try to fix your entire life tomorrow. Wake up early, work out, eat perfectly, clean everything, finish every task, become a new person before sunset. That is not recovery. That is panic dressed like discipline. When you are already discouraged, do not give yourself a mountain. Give yourself a step. It tells your brain, we are not staying here, we are moving again. Do not turn it into a life sentence. You do not need to solve your entire identity before taking the next step. You do not need to prove you are changed before you are doing one changed action. You do not need to feel confident before returning. You just need to return. Identity becomes clearer through action, not rumination. You do not think your way back into trust. You act your way back into trust. Small action, small recovery, small proof. Again and again. One bad day does not erase your progress. You are not fake because you fell back. The old version showing up again does not mean the old version is the truth. Name it correctly, return smaller, recover faster. Use it as a data, and then keep moving. Because change is not proven by never falling. Change is proven by returning. And sometimes the most important day is not the day you feel strong. It is the day after you felt weak. That is the day you decide whether one bad day becomes a story about failure or just one page in a much longer story. So if you had a bad day recently, this is your reminder. You do not need to restart your entire life. You do not need to punish yourself into becoming better. You do not need to prove that the old version is gone forever. Just return. Then return again and then return again after that. Because solid consistency and grit are not glamorous. They are not a moment. They are the only trait that takes you to the destination. Perfect streaks will not take you there. Motivation will not take you there. A clean week will not take you there. Only the return, again and again and again. If this video helped you see your bad days differently, subscribe for more videos like this, because the bad day is not the end of the story. The return is where the story actually changes.